Racing and driving games do for us car enthusiasts what a slice of toasted sourdough does for a bowl of soup. It provides a vessel that carries us down winding ribbons of asphalt, accompanied by screaming engines and burning rubber and brake discs. Thanks to gaming, we get to drive some of the most rare and interesting cars in the world that we could only dream of driving in real life. In fact, there are some cars in racing and driving games that pretty much everybody on the planet could only dream of driving. This is the Gordon Murray Automotive T50, and quite simply, in my eyes, it's car perfection. It's got a naturally aspirated Cosworth V12 engine, revs up to 12,000 RPM, absolute screamer. It weighs less than a ton. It's obviously designed by Gordon Murray. I mean, what more could you possibly ask for? Oh, a manual gearbox. It's got one of them as well. Now, only 100 of these cars are ever going to be made. That makes it a pretty rare car, and we can drive it in a contemporary racing or driving game. I'm playing it here, Forza Horizon 5. But for the purposes of this video, this car simply isn't rare enough. Now, in this video, we're only going to touch on road-legal rare cars, so if your favourite rare monster is a racing car, then we're going to save that for another storytelling session. The ground rules then. Road-legal cars. It can be old or new, and they must appear in a contemporary racing or driving game that you can still buy and play today. So, yes, we can still play Gran Turismo 3 and Project Cars 2, but you can't buy them today officially, therefore those cars wouldn't be eligible for this list. There's also no modded content in this, so it has to be fully official, and it's worth bearing in mind that some of these cars do appear in multiple games, not just one, but for the purposes of this video we're just going to focus on one particular game that shows them off well. Now, you know how I said about 30 seconds ago that we weren't going to talk about racing cars in this video? Well, I'm going to start by talking about a racing car. And not just any racing car, one of the most interesting and intoxicating creations, a work of art in fact, from my own personal favourite ever discipline of motorsport, GT1. Spawned from the BPR Championship, a series designed primarily to allow affluent sports car owners to go racing in their Porsche 911s, Lotus Esprits, and wonderfully French Venturis, the McLaren F1 turned the series on its head. Because it wasn't a sports car, it was a new breed of supercar, in fact, the fastest production car on the planet. Perhaps unsurprisingly then, we had enterprising millionaires looking at Gordon Murray's creation and thinking, I want a bit of that. I want some titles. And so, when the racing derivative was complete, it promptly thrashed the competition. It was like it was in a different class altogether. The clever engineers in Stuttgart, however, were not pleased. They had a nice side business supporting customers who wanted to race, and its regular 911 was getting trounced. So, it hatched a cunning plan. Identifying a gap in the rules, Porsche went about creating a pure racing car, the ultimate motorsport machine. It used bits of the Group C dominating 962 and was dressed in a body that was slightly reminiscent of one of its sports cars. It then slapped a 911 badge on it and went racing. Yet, in order to continue competing, Porsche needed to have an entry based on a road car, so it reverse engineered its new racing car and made a handful that were road registered. That's this, the Porsche 911 GT1 Straßenversion, which literally translates to street. Very pragmatic. Pretty German. I'm driving it here on Gran Turismo 7 because I believe this is the best representation of the road-going street version anywhere in the world of racing games and sim racing. It's not the only place you can play and drive with this car. You can also test it out on the Crew Motorfest, for example. It's so radically different from pretty much all other 911s that it's not actually rear-engined, it's mid-engined, so you don't get that usual Porsche pendulum at the rear. It's a very different feeling to drive it. In the real world, there are 3 versions, although the one with the round 993 generation headlight seen in the Crew was never a production model per se. 2 of that style were made as prototypes, with one being sold to a private collector thought to be in Bahrain. There was also an ultimate version in 1998, but only one of those was made for the road. This is the most prolific version as it happens, with a massive 20 purportedly made in 1997. And I have to say, driving it now, it doesn't really feel at all like a road car. It feels like a race car. with road tyres. It's very stiff, you don't have driving aids, no ABS, no traction or anything like that. Proper raw driving experience. And I can imagine not very comfortable on the road. I wouldn't want to be the one taking it to the local supermarket, especially not in this weather. Actually, scratch that. I would love to drive this to the supermarket. The loophole exploited to create this car then became the new yardstick and started an arms race that saw the likes of Mercedes-Benz, Panos, Nissan and Toyota all create ever more crazy beasts. Somewhat predictably, the whole GT1 rule set died at the end of 1998, but some lucky owners out there have one of the road versions, and I personally am very, very jealous. Now, you thought a bespoke GT1 homologation special was an exciting German conception. How about a late noughties, family-friendly diesel SUV? On the face of it, the Audi Q7 is about as rare as an iPhone. That's to say, not very. This lump of metal is as prosaic as it is ubiquitous, basically brown bread on wheels. So why then am I bringing it up in a conversation about rare cars? Because this example within the recently released Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown isn't any ordinary Audi Q7. This is the rare as hen's teeth diesel. No, not the 3-litre TDI, but the 6-litre twin-turbo V12 diesel. Yes, some lunatics within the Volkswagen group lost all semblance of pragmatism. They created a 12-cylinder diesel engine and placed it within a box normally used to transport private school attendees. This is the first, and to date last, series production V12 engine powered by the black pump. It has 1,000 Newton meters of torque, or pulling power. To put that in some perspective, that's nearly double the amount of shove that a Ferrari 458 has, in a family-friendly SUV. Wild. It also came standard with carbon ceramic brakes, the type you'd normally associate with top-of-the-line Porsches, and consequently it was priced at £96,000 or $128,000 when launched in 2008. Adjusted for inflation, that's $200,000 in today's money. And then there was the garish Coastline version, which featured a wood panel lined trunk for even more cash. Do you know what else was happening in 2008, by the way? Yup. The global financial crisis, and the cataclysmic Lehman Brothers bankruptcy. They were probably playing too much Burnout Paradise and got distracted, didn't we all? According to the car quantity estimator How Many Left, peak Q7 V12 TDI numbers here in the UK were a minuscule 37, and as of 2024, it's estimated that only 18 of those are still on the road. Everything sounds better, more evocative, when you say it in Italian. You want proof? Well, if you thought the word Straßenversion sounded quite abrupt, how about Stradale? More fashion house, less business suit, but these two words basically mean the same thing. A road-going version or variant of a car with its roots firmly in motorsport. Same meaning, but a very different mood. And you know the one thing that sounds better than the word Stradale? The Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale is another legally registered car incorporating elements of a racing variant. Except, unlike the aforementioned Porsche, a ginormous 18 were produced, and it is from all the way back in 1967. Also, just look at it. If God drew up a BuzzFeed-style list of the 3 most beautiful objects on Earth, I reckon it would include the Sistine Chapel, Florence, and the Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale. Probably. This little mid-engine sports car has so much character. It's diminutive, it's direct, it's delicate. You really can't force the issue. You've got to roll it into the corners. If you try and push it too hard, it's going to bite you back. You really sort of have to let it drive you a little bit and drive at its pace. I mean, it is a car from the 1960s, so it's not a huge surprise. And obviously, it's road going. On Assetto Corsa, it leans, it rolls, it understeers, oversteers. You get everything all at once. You have to really work with the engine on the downshifts as well. And speaking of the engine, what a piece of art that is. A dry sump 2-litre V8, revs up to 9,000 RPM. You just don't see them like that anymore. This car is so desirable, in fact, that Alfa Romeo are about to attempt to recreate it. They're going to use the Maserati MC20 as a base, and they're going to produce 33 of them, which is nice and fitting. Some of them will be available with a V6 engine, some of them will be all electric, and it's going to be called the Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale. Imagine trying to take a Maserati MC20 and make it prettier and more desirable. I didn't think it was possible, but maybe with something like this, it actually might be. Anyway, that's not available to drive anywhere yet, whereas this original car on Assetto Corsa is. Bella macchina.
Whether you're just starting out your sim racing journey or you're a seasoned pro looking to upgrade your cockpit, Next Level Racing likely has a product that suits you. It has a wealth of options from premium aluminium profile rigs to portable wheel and monitor stands. If all of this interests you, then do make sure you check out its website via the affiliate link in the description below. Doing so also helps support this Traction channel. Oh, and also, by using that link, you get a 5% discount if you go on to purchase anything from Next Level Racing. So really, it's a win-win.
Just 18 left. That's very exclusive, but not as precious as one of one. This is exactly what the Bugatti La Voiture Noire is, seen here in the Crew Motorfest. Translating as simply the black car, this special motor is based upon the existing Chiron hypercar. With a ginormous 499 of those produced, one fan thought that was far too popular. I mean, imagine turning up at your friend's Middle Eastern mansion only to discover that they too had a Chiron. Perish the thought. To understand this car, we must first look at the Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic Coupe from the 1930s. 4 of those were made at the time, although one went missing during World War II. That remaining trio are, according to auction house RM Sotheby's, expected to be worth in excess of $40 million each. La Voiture Noire is intended to be a contemporary 4th member, recreating-ish that missing example, but based on a modern platform. Unveiled at the 2019 Geneva Motor Show, and thus celebrating 110 years of the company, there was speculation that 5-time Ballon d'Or winner Cristiano Ronaldo has commissioned its build. But alas, that is not true. Of course it's not true, the source is the Daily Mail. What we do know is that the owner is a Bugatti enthusiast. There's also conjecture about the price, but according to the manufacturer directly, it cost 11 million euros pre-tax. Slap some VAT, import duties and luxury car fees on there and it should cost considerably more. Compared to the common-as-much Chiron, this model has a completely bespoke body with a curvaceous LED rear light and a stunning wraparound windscreen. To drive in this game, it's very much like the car it's based upon. That is to say, wicked speed, thanks to a quad turbocharged W16 engine and all-wheel drive, accompanied by the deep rumble of a thunderstorm. From something relatively recent to something from the 1960s, but equally as collectible. In fact, scrap that. Despite there being 36 times more Ferrari 250 GTOs on the road than Bugatti La Voiture Noirs, 3 of the 4 most expensive car sales ever were this model. One sold for $70 million, another one $51.7 million, and another one $38 million. These are prices that would make even Jeff Bezos squeamish. GTO stands for Gran Turismo Omologato. Omologato is the Italian word for homologation, and despite the Ferrari 250 GTO being designed to go racing, and some used bravely in historic events nowadays, all 36 produced are in fact road legal. They all still exist too, with some notable owners such as Pink Floyd drummer Nick Mason and fashion designer Ralph Lauren. In fact, the latter will sell you a scale model, somewhat bizarrely, a steel at £1,665. One of the reasons this is such an extolled vehicle is the pedigree. It's hard to argue with the racing versions winning 3 GT World Championships. Examples also won the grueling Targa Florio and the Spa 1000km event, plus a class victory at the 1962 24 Hours of Le Mans. Another element has to be the fizzy V12 engine, but perhaps most of all, it's the drop-dead gorgeous looks. I mean, if I wax lyrical about the Alfa Romeo, I don't know what I'm going to say about the Ferrari 250 GTO, I probably just shouldn't say anything. Interestingly, as much as it's a rare car in real life, it's also quite a rare car to find in racing and driving games. I mean, I could have just got hold of it on Assetto Corsa through the Ferrari DLC pack, but that would have been too easy. On Gran Turismo 7, possibly the most detailed virtual recreation to date, it is the maximum 20 million credits and only appears to purchase every so often. Here in Forza Horizon 5, you must first wait until you find every single barn find car available, and then once you've done that, you've got to wait again until this particular Ferrari is restored to its former glory. This is art imitating life.
We begun with a Porsche, so let's bookend this with another one. Unlike the aforementioned model at the start of this journey, this one comes from inauspicious beginnings. You see, the Porsche 924 sports car wasn't meant to be a Porsche at all.
Instead, the Stuttgart was employed by Volkswagen to design and build a diminutive two-seater sports car to sit atop of its own range. The problem was, though, before this project was ever finished, VW simply changed its mind and opted instead for the more golf-like Scirocco. Nein danke. With the project mostly complete, however, Porsche decided to produce it anyway for itself, slotting in below the venerated 911. One problem with that, you see, this used the pretty feeble 2-litre straight-4 engine that was designed originally by NSU, the now defunct car brand, to go in the Volkswagen LT van. So this supposed sports car shared its platform, albeit with a few modifications, to a commercial vehicle. Not great.
Over time, however, the boffins fettled the model, eventually turbocharging it, and in the case of the GT, going all out in search of performance. It went even further with this.
The 924 Carrera GTS. Now, unlike the existing base 924 models, this one was very much designed with motor racing and competition in mind, so there were of course some changes. First of all, you had flared wheel arches in order to incorporate a wider track, better suited to motorsport. Then you had a plastic aero kit on the front and a rubber aero kit on the rear as well, plus just a teensy wincy bit more power. This car, okay, it's not crazy, by today's standards especially, but it produces 210 brake horsepower. Plenty enough to have a lot of fun chucking it around a race circuit like Laguna Seca.
In fact, all of those changes and the performance figures were actually attributed to the 924 Carrera GT. This GTS, on the other hand, had an extra 35 brake horsepower, and in pursuit of weight savings, non-pop-up headlights under a clear cover. The GTS is also nearly 60 kilograms lighter than the equivalent GT, a whole lot scarcer too. Only 59 GTS examples were created, all of those left-hand drive, and of those, 15 were Club Sport versions prepped for track use. Fast forward 13 years, and Porsche was still producing a model essentially built on the same platform. It had gone through some changes. A heavy facelift saw the model designation change from 924 to 944, and then again to 968. In 1993, 2 years from the end of this model's production run, came the 968 Turbo S.
It was now using a 3-litre engine that was, yes you guessed it, turbocharged. It was also following a fairly well-proven recipe: lightness equals speed. Now, most Porsche enthusiasts, when they think of a fancy 968, salivate over the Club Sport, but it was actually this Turbo S that was the rarer car. Only 14 of them were ever made, and all of these in Europe. Sorry, America. There were another 4 models made called the Turbo RS, but these weren't road legal, they were simply for racetracks. Now, such a small production run wasn't actually the plan originally. Porsche were set to build 100 of these Turbo S's, but there simply wasn't the demand.
Missing its sales target by 86% means that those who did go through with the purchase then owned one of the most sought-after cars ever to appear from Weissach's motorsport division. Lucky sods.
I have to say, as I get older, I am beginning to really love and enjoy these old Porsches. It's such a simple design and quite a kind of well-known body shape, a well-known car, but these are such rare examples within that well-known moniker. Something quite special about that. And I love that you can just jump on something like Forza Motorsport and hurl these cars around your favourite circuits. If you're a fan of this sort of Porsche story as well, you might want to check out our race room video we did a while back where we covered basically the history of the Porsche Carrera Cup, because that game has a lot of these old Porsches on it too, and a lot more modern racing cars as well, so please do check out that video if you're interested.
The beautiful irony with a topic like rare cars and racing games is that despite the cars being rare, there are countless examples of these rare cars across all sorts of different games, and of course there are many different cars that we haven't even touched in this particular video, so do let us know down in the comments below if there are any rare cars in racing games that you would like to see.
Who knows, maybe we'll make a part 2. It's not just road cars, of course, there are also hundreds of obscure and rare racing cars dashed across all sorts of different racing games, and that's another topic we would love to cover in a future video. But hopefully you enjoyed this one today. If you did, leave us a like to show your appreciation, and subscribe to the Traxion channel for more car history lessons and general motorsport and sim racing and racing game videos in the future. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.